So, as you get older, I'm sure you've been aware that a lot of things are starting to fall on you. And, for some people, including myself, it's been easier just to stop smiling. It feels like there's not a lot to look forward to, and the joy we once had doesn't compare to the joy we experience right now. And, you know, it can be a sign of maturity to some people to stop smiling and to stop having that kind of joy you had experiencing and carrying out your day-to-day tasks and hobbies. As an athlete, I'm sure you've seen how the environment around you has changed. When you were a kid, it was fun, versus now you don't see that as much. And it's kind of more serious, and you think you have less margin for error, and you just have to take it seriously now, or else nobody will take you seriously. But the one thing that I've learned, just kind of from trying to be too mature at a young age, is that there's no point. Because how I felt now doesn't feel the same way that I thought I would feel 10 years ago. When I was a kid, I always thought that when I was 18, I was going to be a grown man, have everything figured out, and just be on track to live just like a extravagant lifestyle. I'm not saying that that could be unattainable for you, like soon, but I'm just saying that that type of thing isn't what I have or what I thought my life would be now. Obviously everybody wants to be in a state of like life where they're thriving, you know? Nobody wants to fail, and nobody wants to just go through all of these things that, prevent them from reaching who and where they thought they would be right now. But trying to be too mature, even as like adults, can be just seen as a sign of fear. Because, whenever I thought I was being mature, I thought I was being like cool and just not showing emotion. I thought that made me like ice cold or something like that. But now, whenever I do that, I just think like, why am I not enjoying what I have in the moment? Because I'm telling you, the older and older you get, it's just the more serious. Not only does everything like from your hobbies get more serious, or like anything like that, but work gets more serious too. You start to see the smile disappear off people's faces, because that's just what work does to people. That people stop whenever they have enough, and just they know what they want to do for the rest of their life, and they're okay with it, and they're okay with having enough. But like, they might not be happy in that current situation, but it's enough for them, right? They start to just go through the motions instead of enjoying everything and having a passion and showing some emotion towards, whatever you're doing every day, and being excited to show up to work, and or just excited for anything. Instead, they're just, hey, how you doing? Haha, fake laugh. Something like that, where they give you the fluoride stare, right? So I just think that basically people are just being too serious. Um, there's not many people who I really truly understand on like a spiritual level in my life. But I feel like the ones I always get along with the best now are the ones who are able to be the most human with other people. Because showing no emotion and being all serious and expected to not make any errors or anything all the time. That's a robot. But like a real human would show emotion, would have some passion towards what they do, and most importantly, have a smile on their face. Whenever I wasn't performing in like my sport, all the time my mom would tell me, "Why don't you smile anymore?" Because as a kid, I always smiled and I always enjoyed playing ball, and you know, it just brought me joy. Like, not only in an athletic aspect of my life, but in all aspects of my life, I just smiled all the time when I was happy. As I got older, life started to get on me. I started to kind of have a crisis of, you know, why are all these things happening to me? And I'm so unlucky. Like, I'll never make it because I'm so unlucky or something like that. But you are the person who truly dictates what you have and what you don't have currently in your life. If you say you're unlucky, you're going to be unlucky just because your mind sees that sort of outcome. But if you think that you're that person who you want to be in the future, you're already in that state of mind and that frequency, you're going to start to embody it. And, if you think you're depressed and hard all the time, really it's just somebody who's scared to be vulnerable. And, there's nothing wrong with that in any way, but I think the first step in really maturing as a person is realizing that, like, maybe I was going the wrong way. Or maybe I do need to show some more emotion. Show a little more humanity, you know? I feel like all the time we're just expected to just always be perfect. Like, people always say, "Oh, I'm actually not expecting you to be perfect or anything," but it sure feels like it, right? Like, it feels like when you fail or something, people just come down on you or anything. And if you're not somewhere where you want to be, you feel like you're a failure yourself. But, after all these lessons I've learned from, being too hard on myself or trying to show no emotion because I thought that would make me have some more respect from other people. Truly. Because I thought that if I didn't care, I'd be looked at as cooler, mature, and ice cold. But I didn't really find enough enjoyment in that. It's not like I ever forced it, because whenever I showed a lack of emotion, it was because I was just going through the motions. And it's just, I didn't really care about my life at that standpoint. Because, like, there were things in my life that I let get to me. But, the most joy and the most happiness I felt in my life was when I had a smile on my face. Things could have been going wrong, but it didn't feel like it. Because I was happy enough on the inside to not let these things out of my control affect me. And basically just what I'm trying to say is, like, you don't have to be perfect. Be that person who raises their hand and gets the question wrong. Because at the end of the day, not many people in the world are, like, still, like, experimenters at the end of the day. People stop wanting to learn by failure, and people start just wanting to learn by textbook and tests and lessons and just hearsay and what other people believe and whatnot. But you can do that, but I'm telling you, on a consistent standpoint, if you start to make more mistakes, smile through it all, and just not care about, truly, you hear this a lot when I say don't care about what other people say, but people never truly apply those principles to life. And yes, it's said a lot and it's cliche, but I always like to say if it's cliche for a reason. You know, these sayings aren't just some joke, right? All these corny mottos that people always said when I was growing up to me, I would always be like, man, like, that ain't important. But as I'm getting older, I'm starting to realize just how truthful all these cliche sayings were. So maybe if it's being repeated in your life enough times, you should probably listen to it and maybe apply it to your own life. But just remember, especially when chasing after something that you want to pursue for the rest of your life or a big goal you have in mind, whenever you're doing it, all this hard work, dedication, and grind is good. At the end of the day, it means nothing because you'll always be behind the person who has a smile on their face. Truly. Social media makes it to where they just PR everybody to be a perfect robot and never make mistakes, but they never show the mistakes or the behind the scenes, or else everybody would want to do it. But a very small percentage of people are actually able to do what they want to do because those are the ones that fail. Those are the experimenters of the world, right? So truly, when I say to you, if you have a goal and you think it's out of your reach, try. But you can't go after something and not even support yourself by like going after it. If you think it's out of reach, it will always be out of reach. So, you know, just smile. It's as easy as that. And, you know, when you do it, don't forget to smile and just always be grateful for everything. Because, I mean, we only get this chance once, right? Like, we only can choose so many options in our life before we look back when we're older and we'll either regret it or we'll be happy that we made these decisions. Whenever I look back and I'm happy on a decision, it's usually not from the outcome, but it was from how I felt during it. I stopped focusing on the outcome and I started realizing that just how you feel doing it and just like finding a genuine sense of enjoyment and like just having joy in it really carries you a long way. And no, I'm not talking about all these like drugs and all of that. I'm talking about like just something you genuinely like an activity, not smoking weed. But you know, just don't try and make yourself into a robot. I'm seeing so many people around me have their smiles disappear, and you know, myself included some days. But you know, when you do it and when you do achieve these goals, don't forget to smile because your mom will love it.